Does the Confessions of an Economic Hitman explain Disney's strategy with Marvel right now? I am reaching so far. I recognize that completely. But bear with me, I'm going to offer you something that I think you'll find at least interesting, because the book I read was The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins, which is nonfiction, essentially. It is not really related to Disney. I'm reaching here. I recognize that. Confessions of an Economic Hitman is about the American empire and our methods of international usury and lying with statistics and creating a debt-based economy and taking over at least South America, essentially, and how that got turned around onto the American people. And honestly, if you aren't already familiar with terms such as international usury, you'd probably find it interesting. It might be worth your time. It might teach you a few things about what's going on in the world. It's the kind of nonfiction book that I read to help my cyberpunk writing, because let's not forget, link in the description, man. Gamma Coin, Book 2 of the Bash and Blackstone series, available now. Buy it. It's a great time. But anyway, so how does this relate to Disney? People talk a lot about how, say, The Marvels was a total bomb. No one went to go see it. And they talk about, oh, the writing's bad, the casting's bad, Brie Larson's a mean person. They'll name all these things, as they're sitting there trying to get ad dollars on YouTube by using keywords that people are ready to click on because they want that cathartic anger, essentially. Which, of course, just feeds the algorithm propping Disney up. Which I'm not doing because I'm not monetized. You should hit the subscribe button so I can do that. But they say that Disney lost money, that Disney is consistently losing money. And there are two reasons where that's not really true, in my opinion. First of all, most of the money being spent by Disney on these film productions is going into CG. Now, do I think that they're probably making a mistake? Yes, but let me explain something with what's going on when you spend these giant budgets. When you are a company like Disney, or realistically the film division, Marvel and such, when what they've poached from Pixar specifically, you have development projects and overhead and stuff that needs to be assigned to a project, essentially, because you need to justify spending the money. If you need to do something like drop $50 million trying to develop, say, a new way to model long hair so that you can have a girl who is shy and hides behind her long hair that you currently can't model because the physics systems don't exist, and you gotta go build them. And guess what? That's a $50 million project. I've made the numbers up. I'm, of course, referring to The Incredibles there, which clearly paid off. Because you gotta do that when you gotta make a tool that doesn't currently exist. And there are other channels out there that you can probably go find that go into a lot of interesting detail about the actual developments that major studios have to do to try and push the technology so that they are on the cutting edge and able to do what they want to do. It's not just hobbyists trying to make Rule 34. So they do contribute a shocking amount. So when they're building a tool, they just have to bin it against something. And if you end up with a $500 million budget, but $200 million was developing a CG system, you'll be fine making back $300 million on that movie. Even though that would look like a $200 million loss. It's just you have to track it somehow. And when you look at the costs on development projects, you don't necessarily have return on investment. And it just kind of is what it is. They're also doing something else, which is more insidious, which basically every major corporation that has a monopoly in a sphere is doing this. And I do consider Disney to currently have the monopoly on big budget movies, which I should probably do another video about how they probably need to be sued for making such crap films, the face of Hollywood. But that's not today. When they are hiring people for behind the scenes, such as CG departments, these companies are directly incentivized to buy everyone on the market remotely competent and have them under their house. Because what they're doing, even though they're losing money on that, and they're not making money yet, even though the shareholders right now are taking them to task and demanding they make money. That's why you're going to see people get fired. It's because they were poaching people to deprive the competition for years and years and years so that Disney could get ahead, theoretically. I'm not saying they actually did. There's a big difference between what they strategized and attempted to do versus what they succeeded in doing. Don't forget that. But by depriving their competitors of talent, Disney was getting ahead while they were suffering. That is another reason why you, as a studio, go, you know, we could have made this film for $100 million less, but we have solidified our position as the best in CG, for example. It's just one random thing. For the last 3 years by doing this, we spent money to maintain a dominant position, and that is in our company's interest. So again, it doesn't matter that they lost money. Now, those are some things that can justify inflating the budget of a film beyond just I want those Avatar bucks. I want to spend $100 million and get $1 billion box office opening because we managed to get into China and it didn't offend their sensibilities, so it went crazy and we made a ton of money. They do want to do that. But then now we have to get into Hollywood accounting, which I'm sure you've probably heard other people talk about Hollywood accounting, such as if you ever get a deal, don't ask for a cut of profits. You ask for a cut of gross because there will never be profits. There are many famous examples, such as Forrest Gump, that somehow has never turned a profit because they cook the books. Because they do things like write off the expense of hiring useless CG departments that develop projects that don't go anywhere, or what they do is they pay for exorbitant marketing fees to companies that they or their friends own, regardless of what the return on that marketing is. As I've said on previous channels, advertising doesn't work anymore. You're not buying money when you advertise, typically. It's particularly with these kinds of things. You're buying presence and clout, and laundering money. Let's be real. They are shuffling money between companies in a way that they have cooked up so that they can get themselves paid and manipulate like box office prices and this, that, and the other thing. So the way it should be looked at is the way that Tide Aid works, which maybe you've at one point looked at the U.S. federal government's budget and gone, why are we sending millions or billions of dollars to countries X, Y, and Z who hate us? And maybe if you've looked into it a bit more, you've heard, it's to force them onto the petrodollar because the hegemony of the greenback is what is paramount, which I'm not saying that's wrong. The scam is actually a bit more obvious than that, actually. It's if we give some country in Africa, for example, $10 billion, we are writing them a contract that says you must spend $8 billion of those $10 billion buying from U.S. companies. But what actually happened is the U.S. government robbed the American people of tax money and then bundled it up, sent it overseas, so that it could get sent back to the lobbyists that paid for it, so that various companies can produce extra product and ship it to a different market more than what the American market could possibly consume, and get paid by the government that they lobbied to do this for. So that's what's happening with the U.S. government. How does that relate to Disney? Disney, every time they release a movie, they collect money from the viewers, the fans, the people that show up to the film. And let's say, it's Avengers Endgame. They make 1 point something billion dollars. And then that goes back to Disney. And then Disney splits that out between various other future movie projects. And then they are paying their friends and themselves to produce those things. And then the next movies get produced. And they harvest more money from the audience to then distribute back to their other shell companies. So even if they film like the Marvels cost $500 million, what happened is they moved $500 million from Disney's assets to the assets of companies owned by basically the same people, on the same team, the same friends, the same ideological cult, has now secured that $500 million. Now, they do have people working. I'm not saying they're not working, but I'm saying that it's not for that price. They're shuffling money around. And then by doing that, they get another lump of revenue for whatever they produce. And of course, they would rather be bringing in $1 billion, but there's no reason to think of this as they lost 400 million by only making 100 million. No, they made another 100 million that's going to end up in the pockets of them and their friends. That's why hiring practices are so strict. That's why you basically can't speak out if you're a conservative celebrity in Hollywood, because the money must stay within their friends and not go to their enemies. But maybe I'm just making a wild conspiracy theory because I needed to make a video about a book that isn't in line with the usual things I discuss, but I had to read anyways because, like I said, I'm a cyberpunk guy. You should check out my book, Gamecoin. It's really good. Drop a like and let me know in the comments below if you think I'm full of shit or if this is probably what's actually happening. And yes, I succumbed. I made a Disney video. Sue me.